welcome to our webinar. Our title today is How Digital Skills Can Support Sustainable Tourism. My name is Ebru Bengisu, and I am joining on behalf of the Digi-Tour-Skills project. With us, we have Mark Pilic-Wright for Digi-Tour-Skills project again, representing TEST Romania, and Paraskevi Kopoulou, again for Digi-Tour-Skills project, representing Rezos brands. We have Panayotis Touzenis and Professor Athanasios Kizos, and they are going to present their projects and the results of their projects.
Okay. So thank you very much for attending this very interesting effort of the two European Erasmus small-scale partnerships in the field of adult education to discuss how digital skills can support sustainable tourism. So Digi-Tour-Skills is an Erasmus plus small-scale partnership in adult education that started in 2024, and it is ending in 2026. Actually, it is ending by the end of March. The project started after the pandemic, and the idea behind it was that coronavirus crisis highlighted the urgent need for digital transformation. It is important to mention that only 25% of tourism workers have the relevant qualifications, digital qualifications, making them one of the least skilled groups in the European Union. So to help them, the Digi-Tour-Skills project came up with the aim to support them and provide them with practical learning tools navigating their careers. Our consortium consists of 3 partners, as we have already told. 2 from Greece, Rezos brands, the coordinator, and Transylvanian Educational Services and Tourism from Romania. Mathemagenesis, who is also hosting us for this session here today, is actually based in Thessaloniki. So through these 2 years, the Digi-Tour-Skills project aimed to bridge these gaps by offering webinars to develop digital skills in the tourism sector, practical case studies that turn theory into real-world application, as well as a digital handbook to guide users in using digital tools effectively. Our aim was to equip adult learners with essential digital skills, offering webinars for beginners to create a more resilient and future-ready tourism industry. At this point, and with this slide, you can see the several webinars, the 10 webinars actually conducted between February 2025 till our next webinar, which is the last one next week on VR technology. There are several webinars on themes like content marketing, website management and user experience, social media marketing, analytics, email marketing, paid advertisements, blockchain technology, SEO, and also AI in tourism. I would like, of course, our communication channels are very important to us, and we are aiming to create a communication hub through our project's website, Digi-Tour-Skills.edu. So I encourage you all to scan the QR code and find all the material produced throughout these 2 years of project implementation. Our webinar videos are also available on YouTube. Our Digi-Tour-Skills owns a YouTube channel, and they're available both in English with subtitles in English and Romanian as well.
Thank you all for this invitation. I'm really happy to participate to this joint webinar representing our project, Sustainable Tourism Skills for Adult Learners. Our project actually, in comparison with the Digi-Tours project, is at the beginning. We started in November 2025, and we're finishing in 2 years' time. So we're very happy, though, to cooperate with other projects that are related to sustainability, and especially using digital tools. So, what we actually do? We try to provide sustainable tourism education, training and capacity building, community impact and inclusion. As you're going to see from our partners, our base is education, and so it's really, really important for us to provide sustainable tourism education tools and to train not only the learners, but also the teachers. Regarding the project objectives, as you can see, is to enhance employability and social inclusion, promote sustainable and responsible tourism practices. Actually, in our first technical visit that took place in Olbia, we had the opportunity to experience some sustainable tourism practices. You're going to examine them in our side as well. Another objective is to support vulnerable and marginalized groups, strengthen international cooperation, knowledge exchange, and also align with Erasmus Plus horizontal priorities. What are our target groups? Our primary target group is adult learners. Actually, two of our partners, ourselves and Second Chance School of Samos, Second Chance School of Mytilene in Lesbos, and Second Chance School of Samos are adult education schools. So our learners are basically adults. Another target is to the educators and trainers in adult education. And our secondary target group is local communities, tourism businesses, and educational institutions. Regarding our partnership, that consists from Second Chance School of Mytilene, who is the coordinator, University of Baleares Islands, Second Chance School of Samos, and also the organization in Rome, Mare Vivo. What are our expected results? First, to create a booklet, a sustainable tourism booklet after 2 years, to provide training materials for educators, to build some local workshops and teacher training sessions, and also to attend some technical visit reports.
I was asked to talk about sustainable tourism and practices and different skills, but I would like to take 5 minutes of your time to discuss if we can put sustainable next to tourism in the first place, if there can be sustainable tourism, and what would that mean exactly. This, I think, will guide us better and more to see what kind of skills and knowledge and capabilities we will need in order to be able to be more sustainable in tourism. First of all, I will start with what is tourism? The definition that the World Tourist Organization uses is about a traveler who travels for relaxation in a destination not in usual residence, and you have to spend at least 1 night there. If you return overnight, you're a visitor. Tourism has been a very important activity today. How important? 1.5 billion tourists last year. I think this is also the number. 1.45 is for 2025. 1.5 trillion US dollars. Only. These are mostly international tourists, not domestic tourists as well. And it is also a little bit underestimated because if I travel now, for example, for a scientific conference, I'm using hotels, I eat in restaurants, I will travel with the same things that the tourists travel. So, and I will probably do some activities. So even if I'm not officially a tourist, I participate in all the things that have the impact on the destination that a tourist will have. So in my opinion, it's exactly the same. All travelers should be considered as tourists in terms of their impact on the destination, because I want to link it again to sustainability. I won't go into data. You see the how tourism has bounced back after the pandemic, and I would like a little bit to stress the differences that tourism have compared to other economic activities. The first and the most important difference is that when you travel, you go to Paris, for example. You go to see the Eiffel Tower, you go to eat the food, you go to visit the Paris atmosphere. You don't go because these belong to the hotel that you pay. The hotel does not own all this. You travel mostly because you want to see public goods. But these public goods do not belong. They are not owned by the people who sell you the tourist service. So we have a second, a first degree supply, which is public resources, and a second degree supply, which is private businesses, mostly, most of the time. And this is very important because it raises the issue of what we used to call the tragedy of the commons. How do you manage resources effectively and sustainably that you don't own? Because everybody feels that they can take a piece of the resource without causing too much harm in the resource. And in the end, tourism undermines its own resources. There is also another peculiarity, and this is related to demand. Because instead of when you buy a pair of shoes, you go, the pair of shoes has shipped from Vietnam or from China, wherever it comes from, to you. But when you are a tourist, you go to the factory. The product does not come to you. You have to go to the factory. And this is a very important difference because it involves also a choice that you have to travel, and it also kind of increases the competition between different tourist destinations. Of course, it has many different quantitative and qualitative aspects, such as seasonality. It's still a very seasonal activity, not as seasonal as it used to be, but it's still a seasonal activity. It can be domestic or foreign, and we used to separate it to different forms according to the activity that was mostly involved. You know, many people like to go and bake themselves in the sun, sit for 6 hours in the sun, 3 hours one side, 3 hours on the other side, and consider this to be a vacation. Others, like people who come to Lesbos, come to see birds because they like this kind of activity. But typically, what we see lately is that we have a broader basket in tourism services desired by tourists. You don't go to do one activity. You go perhaps for one activity, but you try to do more activities. And the other major difference in tourism is that it used to have, this is not very important now, it used to have a very strict organizational structure with tour operators, big tour operators that dominated completely the market and dominated also completely destinations. If TUI wanted in the 1990s to take completely an island off the map, it could very easily do so. Now, with the rise of the internet, we have become more towards individual trips, and most of the big tour operators have collapsed anyway. And even more recently, the so-called gig economy has, which in our case probably mostly means the short rental supply, has made a huge change, because right now, especially in the beginning of the Airbnb phenomenon, you don't need new infrastructure to get in the tourism market. You don't need to build hotels. You have already. You're using the infrastructure or the housing or the building capital that already exists. So you don't need to build that much. And this opens up the opportunity for many different destinations, but for many different people as well, to be able to use this kind of opportunities and the individual trip and the individual visitors of people that we should be developing skills and capabilities to cater for. This is the kind of people that we want to be able to service better. And so what do tourists want? And then I will go to sustainability. They don't want a service, but we want, because all of us are also tourists, we want an experience. And we want a diversity of choice and services, and not a single service or activity, even when we travel for a single activity. And there is also a lot of professionalization of supply, especially in accommodation and services. And as I write here, we have an opportunity here. What do I mean by professionalization? Last Sunday, I was out looking for wild orchids on Lesbos. There are more than 100 species here. People that would come now to Lesbos and would be interested in flowers and no orchids, they would be very interested if I took them to the specific places where you can find these wild orchids. But I had to know my stuff. You cannot take them out and say that this is an orchid and this being an iris. So we need to be also very professionals. We need to know what we're talking about, and we need to be able to provide a service that caters to the different needs of the tourists, and also be transparent and quality, because right now the users can rank the service that you provide to them. We have significant impacts of tourism in economy. To increase the risk of monoculture, and leakages are very important in society, because we often have a rift between the values, and open the questions of authenticity. What is authentic? Right now, we have a lot of issues, what I call the Disneyification of experience, that everything becomes a Disneyland, because you don't have an authentic experience, but an experience that is mediated for the tourist, created for the tourist. And this is kind of a thematic park. It's exactly like the Disneyland. And of course, huge impacts in the environment, depending on the scale of the tourism, local and global. So what is sustainability in tourism? I'm not sure, to be honest. We have to use different contexts. We have to use different meanings and different contents for sustainability. I think that the right strategy is a practical and local approach. See where we are now, see what we have as a major issue, and try to improve. And also, I think that you have to involve tourists in this sustainability game. And this is the kind of knowledge and skills that people should be developing, being more professionals in the kind of service that they sell or they want to market, and being more and trying to improve their social and environmental footprint in every day, not have a very big objective like tourists that will leave no environmental footprint. That's impossible, of course. That's completely impossible. But try to improve. The real problem, in my opinion, and I will finish with that, is what can you do when your area becomes so popular? What can you do? Raise the prices? This will mean that only richer people can come. Decrease supply? Again, this will not be easy. I think that we need to make, first of all, transparent and include the tourists in what you want to do and what you want to achieve in a destination. and also promote what we call in tourism studies as destination management, which means that you need to come together, the different actors, and see where you are, see where you want to go, and see how you can get there in small, very small, local and practical steps. I've taken, I think, a little bit more of my time. Thank you for your patience, and I would be very happy to answer any questions now or later in with email or whatever you you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and also thank you very much for the opportunity to highlight some of the work that we've been able to do for the Digi-Tour-Skills project over the last 2 years. It's actually brought back the opportunity to speak today has actually brought back some memories, and that's where I thought I might start, actually, to introduce what may be people's opinions of tourism, how it used to be, and maybe how it's moving towards now. This is my first impression of a tourist agency. Big, brightly coloured posters, the hard sell almost. It involved a lot of special offers appearing in the newspapers and things like that, but we've all sort of changed the way we go about booking things and finding out about places, and everything just seems to be so much closer than it was before. But for as long as I can remember, the tourism industry has operated on a simple, but as we now know to be somewhat flawed metric, which was volume. Basically, more arrivals equals more success. This was very evident actually from my own experiences, my childhood trips to Butlins holiday camps in Minehead and Bognor Regis or Blackpool, to name but a few. We travelled a lot around Britain in those days. Right on to experiencing Europe for the first time in my late teens with trips to Ibiza, Corfu, and Benidorm, probably contributing to what is considered to be not so responsible tourism. However, I think a lot of us have realized that, particularly, probably more recently, we've got Barcelona as a big example. In 2017, I remember a lot about the protests about Barcelona not being for sale anymore, and we've seen a lot of changes, I think, to tourism, particularly in some of these places, more so now than perhaps we thought was going to happen. But we've seen a switch, I think, from the more equals more formula to where we are now, I believe, in 2026, where more is, as Professor Kizos said, is no longer sustainable to go pumping in so many tourists. So I believe the twin transition, I believe they call it nowadays, is what we're witnessing. Pretty much where digital innovation and sustainability are no longer like a separate path anymore. They've always gone, I think, in the same direction, but now I think they're merging now and becoming more of an ecosystem, if you like, for want of a better expression. And today, what I'd like to do is to show you how I believe digital tools are acting as the primary nervous system, if you like, for this new era of responsible travel. But just to highlight some of the issues that have already been raised, actually, one of them is the subject of over-tourism. It's a hot topic. It's certainly the industry's greatest challenge, I believe, at the moment. In the past, we've been pretty much guilty, I think, of just reacting only after a site or location became overcrowded. We just sort of moved everything somewhere else. Maybe under the influence of some of these bigger tourist agencies that struggling now. But many destinations, like Venice in the image there, have been forced to apply restrictions on the numbers of visitors permitted in certain areas. A decision, I believe, that's probably very, very difficult or incredibly difficult to enforce. But where does the digital bit come in? Well, this is where we could go a little bit sci-fi, if you like. Here, for example, you can see how an AI-powered predictive analytics could be used to help identify, heat maps of crowd density, for example, in real time, or air quality, etc. And for example, let's say you're in a very popular city and it's being monitored in such a fashion, then just as the city centre is sort of reaching a red zone, if you like, for capacity, we could use an app that the tourists have installed, or city app or something like that, and we could use the data from being collected about the numbers of people and the air quality and things, and we could just sort of nudge them, if you like, nudge the travellers to areas of a lesser density. So, for example, we could offer a discount at a restaurant in a nearby village or town, or suggest a mountain hike, boat trip, or a guided tour of a quieter part of the city, perhaps. I mean, this would be, it would involve probably, a community, if you like, of like-minded businesses in the local area to share the data with each other, and then allow for, these sort of actions to be implemented effectively. But even on a local level, the Internet of Things, it's not just making more of a statement these days in our homes. I mean, I control the heating system at home from my phone, so it's quite a, it has its uses. But basically, for relatively low cost sensors, if you put them into a hotel environment, for example, they can help automate energy and water usage. So, for example, as a guest leaves their room or something, then the room can rest. Even just simple things like lowering the air conditioning or heating or whatever, and turning off the lights. So it's not just eco-friendly, but it could lead to some massive reductions in operational costs for some of these, smaller businesses. It's going to make, a huge difference. Okay, I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted here, but sustainability isn't just about, the environmental issues, or, the carbon footprint. It's also about community and culture. The places we go on holiday are actually the homes of other people. So you can understand maybe some of the reasons behind some of the protests in Barcelona, for example. But personally, I think this is where new digital skills can really come to the fore. For example, 5,000-year-old cave paintings. How could we allow people to go and see these, or how could we allow people to see these without the carbon dioxide from their breath deteriorating the images, and therefore, denying that opportunity from future visitors or tourists? Well, one idea, one of the subjects of one of our webinars in the project, is to create digital twins or immersive VR experiences. The capabilities these days to provide, high quality virtual experiences, we could easily, I feel, satisfy the curiosity of most people who would just be interested in seeing these things, but at the same time providing them with some additional background information that they may not have come across prior to their visit. On that light, you could even create virtual tours of hotels so that potential guests could actually see what the hotel is like on a more realistic scale. It reminds me actually of a hospital in the UK that's did a similar thing. It was a hospital for children suffering with cancer, and they created this virtual version of the hospital so that the kids could familiarize themselves with where everything was before they actually got there, and relieve some of the stress of maybe some of the treatment that they were going to be undertaking. But it could also be, spread out to other places of interest around these touristic regions. Also, using direct to community platforms or, locally created platforms, you could bypass some of that middleman leakage, if you like, that was very much exploited by some of the bigger companies in years gone by. But smartphones have been, they're indispensable now. They're on your body at all times, most of the time, and they are quite good travel companions, really. I mean, you've got real-time information thanks to the internet. You've got navigation and translation services that I'm sure I certainly do, use on a very regular basis. But of course, you've also got a built-in wallet as well. So, should a tourist choose to pay for an experience, an authentic experience, they could use a blockchain verified platform and make sure that they're putting all of the profit directly into the pockets of the artisans, those that have put all the effort into making the experiences as original and authentic as they want them to be. Okay, so basically what we're looking at now is the tourist industry going into completely different skill sets compared to what we found out before. I mean, it was interesting that Paraskevi mentioned about the tourist workforce being, the most underqualified in the EU, which is quite interesting because our experiences, if you like, have shown that it's, going to be something that's trendy. A lot of people are actually going through some of these skills in their day-to-day lives, actually, with depending on how active you are in social media and things. But it's going to require a new type of person, and it's not just hospitality anymore. It's considering all the data and managing it. So we're going to need people who can read that data and turn it into some sort of strategy. We'll need analysts to prove to potential investors, if you like, local investors or international investors even, that the carbon footprint is actually shrinking within the tourism. The VR won't create itself, so we'll need people to design and create digital stories that would be just as compelling, if you like, as somebody talking directly at you. Tourist guides and things like that could be something they could experience digitally. And the marketing, of course, market research, targeted marketing, emphasis on the customer experience. I think we're moving away, from that selfie culture of the early 2000s and starting to maybe reteach the travelers or tourists as to how to be a guest rather than just a consumer. I'm using quite a bit of time here, so I will wrap up. But I think it's safe to say, though, that the future of tourism isn't just digital, and it's not just green either. It's both. And I think as you saw with that dashboard again, the smart destinations of 2026 and beyond, I think are going to be able to track and monitor everything from air quality to numbers of visitors at local shops. But by familiarizing ourselves with these new tools and mastering the new skills that we can build, we're not just saving the planet, we're making sure that the tourist industry remains viable. And that, I think, is really important well into the next century. I do have one last thing to leave you with. I'm a teacher of English, is my day job, but and I usually like to start my lessons with a quote, just to get the students' minds thinking in the right direction. But today I thought it was more appropriate to finish with one. So I'm going to leave this one with you. To take only memories, leave only footprints, and kill nothing but time. Goes on, I think, to that slow tourism feel that Professor Kizos mentioned just a moment ago. So thank you all. And
based on what you see in destinations and tourism businesses, where do you see that this is
Okay.
most often breakdown in these real world examples?
I mean, I think that the really important thing is, as I said, is to see what the most important issue is. For example, in most of Greek islands, a really important issue is water. And this is one of the things that would make sustainability, increase sustainability very quickly. So you need to focus that and see what you're going to do and how you will be able to incorporate or introduce some new practices, some new businesses also perhaps that can help you in mitigating this problem. But as I said, you also need to include the tourists so that they know what you're doing, and try to work it this way. Another example that I have from places that are overpopulated and oversaturated with tourism is for islands like Naxos, Paros, or Santorini, really popular destinations, especially in the summer, is that you must try to somehow support the spread of the season even more and try to increase sustainability by reducing the volume and the scale of operations in a very limited period of time. I mean, these are just two starting points for different examples and different things that we can consider. And I think I mentioned this because I think that there is a lot of room for businesses and for people to be employed in this type of situations and improvement in sustainability. And I think that we should look at sustainability not as a threat to tourism activity that would cut down jobs, but as an opportunity to increase and provide new kinds of jobs.
Thank you for your contribution. And for Mark, I have the other question. Which digital skills do you think that are currently most critical for tourism professionals that are also in maybe some of our attendees to support sustainable practices?
Oh, well, the Digital Skills project itself has given us a great opportunity to investigate both the needs of the industry itself, but also the willingness of the workforce, I think, to embrace technology as a support system and help convince locals of its sustainability value, if you like. As I mentioned earlier, the tourism workforce is shifting from general hospitality to more smart management, and a lot of the skills that some stakeholders in the project itself referred to is data analytics. Being able to interpret environmental or social metrics and move some of the activities around a little bit so that it's not sort of heavily focused in one particular area. That's a bit more sort of modeling area, but and again, I mentioned about the VR. It won't design itself, and a lot of the tourists or tourist industry workforce are good at giving guided tours and things like that. So there's no reason why they couldn't be made digital and enhanced with music, background noises that you wouldn't get even with a face-to-face guided tour. And augmented reality as well, I suppose. You could sort of really go mental with that one, I guess. But platforms, are looking after the various sensors you might have in accommodation or things like that. Somebody's got to manage all of that stuff, installing it, looking after it, and making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. And then probably the most popular, I believe, are probably digital marketing and communication. I mean, social media is going to be a huge tool in this line. So, utilizing those channels to help promote particular activities. But more a case, I think, of trying to add a bit of value, storytelling. Promoting that slow travel essence, if you like, where you just sort of you go there, but you're not going to rush around and make sure you see 100 different things. You can just, take your time, focus, think about the experience more rather than just sort of ticking boxes. But so I think that's pretty much, those are the areas, and we're quite lucky that the project has covered pretty much most of that. So we're quite lucky in that sense. But yeah.
Thank you very much. I also have another question, but you already included in your answer to this question the answer for this other question. So I would like to pose it to our other panelists here as a last question for our panel discussion. And then we can go on with our attendees' questions, and we will wrap up the webinar. So for all of our panelists, I would like to ask you, looking ahead, what would make sustainability easier to implement in everyday tourism operations? And what role could digital skills play in supporting this aim? So what would make sustainability easier to implement in everyday tourism operations? And maybe we can pose this question again to Professor Kizos to have his opinions on these ideas.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. I mean, as Mark said, the idea is to move to an experience, to catering for the experience, and this is a basic thing that we need to think of how we will be able to support and how we'll be able to introduce. And in my opinion, one of the things that we need to think about here is incorporating sustainability into this experience. And we need to be able to convince tourists that this experience will not just be something that they will live, but it will be something also that will be beneficial for the destination. And at the same time, I strongly believe, this is my very strong belief, and I think that Mark can also comment on this, that this is a job builder as well. That this is something that can build, create new avenues, new activities, and seek people that will be able to do this. And this is what we have been trying to introduce in small and different examples in agritourism and rural tourism initiatives that I have been involved with from a research and the practitioner's point of view of how you can incorporate sustainability in a way that the tourism would want this as an experience, would like to pay for this experience extra.
Thank you very much. Our other panelists would like to join in for this question.
I'd just like to reinforce as well that I feel it is very much a job builder. I think some of the skills, like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, a lot of people are developing these skills from a very early age, possibly too early, some might say, with regards to creating short videos and things like that could be used to promote tourist attractions, and particularly with many people now offering their own properties as accommodation. It's something that's reachable, it's affordable for people to get involved in, and it's affordable, and it's if it's local people that's doing it, then it's going to contribute to its own sustainability. Local is very important in this sense, I believe.
Thank you very much. Now we have also concluded the panel discussion section. I hope you have benefited from this joint discussion, and hope to see you again in our future webinars.